Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're diving deep into exactly why you delay those really important tasks. And right off the bat, before we even get into the mechanics of the mind, I want to absolve you of a very heavy, very unfair label. You are not lazy. If you've been carrying that word around, letting it weigh you down and define your work ethic, let's just scrap that right now. We're going to look at the real science of delay.
Seriously, when you're putting off a big project or dodging a difficult high-stakes conversation, people might just tell you it's laziness, but psychology shows us a totally different reality. What looks like a lack of discipline on the outside is actually this intense, exhausting internal negotiation happening right inside your mind. It's not about lacking drive, and it certainly isn't about lacking ambition. It's entirely about how your mind is interpreting the situation currently in front of you.
See, over the years, your brain has simply formed a very strong, incredibly automatic psychological association. It looks at the difficult task you need to do and instantly flags it as pain. And on the flip side, it flags avoiding that task as instant, comforting relief. Until you reverse that core biological wiring, no fancy planner, no motivational speech, no extreme 5 a.m. morning routine is really going to help you. Your brain is just doing what it's built to do, avoiding perceived pain and seeking immediate safety.
Section 1. The Procrastination Myth.
The absolute biggest misunderstanding we have in modern work culture is treating procrastination like a time management or willpower issue. We constantly think, man, if I just schedule my day better or if I just push harder, I'll get it done, right? But in reality, it is fundamentally an emotional regulation problem. When you procrastinate, your brain isn't actually saying you lack the time or the stamina. It's telling you that engaging with this specific task feels emotionally uncomfortable. And crucially, it literally doesn't know how to handle that discomfort in the moment.
Just consider the proof of your own energy. If you have the stamina to suddenly deep clean your entire bedroom, reorganize your spice rack alphabetically, scroll for 2 straight hours, or binge watch a massive series, you clearly don't lack focus. You've got plenty of energy. But you're actively avoiding uncomfortable feelings associated with the main task. Things like sheer boredom, deep confusion, the fear of not doing it perfectly, or that terrifying fear of finding out you aren't as capable as you imagined.
Whenever you sit down to work, your brain instantly scans the task and asks this exact primal question: is this safe or is it uncomfortable? If it decides the work is uncomfortable, boom, it immediately starts looking for an exit. And because your brain is incredibly clever, it makes the exit sound perfectly reasonable. It tells you, oh, I'll just start right after a cup of tea, or I just need to watch one more video for clarity. But deep down, it's not looking for clarity, it's just escaping an uncomfortable feeling.
So here's our agenda for our path forward today. We just covered the procrastination myth. Next, we'll dive into nervous system negotiation, making hidden costs visible, rewarding the start, and finally, rewiring for self-trust.
Let's jump into Section 2, Nervous System Negotiation. Okay, here's a secret. Most people don't actually procrastinate on the work itself. They procrastinate on the massive emotional mountain they've built up around it. If your expectation is, I need to write the full script perfectly right now, or I need to completely change my life today, your brain interprets that massive expectation as danger. It resists. So you have to drastically minimize the expectation to make the starting point absolutely too small to fear. Don't write the perfect script. Commit to opening the document and writing 3 bad lines. Don't clean the whole room. Commit to cleaning 1 single chair. You are lowering the barrier to entry so drastically that your brain's alarm bells don't even bother ringing.
The crucial point here is that telling yourself to just write 3 bad lines isn't some cheap productivity hack or a gimmick. It is a literal negotiation with your nervous system. You're basically looking at your brain and saying, hey, we are perfectly safe. We aren't climbing the whole mountain today, we're just taking one tiny step. And often, once that incredibly safe first step happens, the brain simply stops resisting and allows you to keep going.
Moving on to Section 3, make hidden costs visible. Procrastination is a real trickster. It survives because it feels like soft, gentle comfort in the present moment, kind of like finally letting out a held breath. But it hides severe taxes that you pay heavily for later. Every time you delay, you're quietly paying an anxiety tax, a confidence tax, a sleep tax as you stay up late stressing out, and worst of all, a self-respect tax. You're paying for that brief moment of comfort with rushed work, degraded quality, and a really profound sense of guilt. To break this illusion, you have to expose the cost. Instead of just sitting there marinating in guilt when you delay, get a pen and explicitly write down the cost. Literally write, because I procrastinated on this task,
I lost my evening peace. Or, because I delayed, I'm carrying extra mental weight into my weekend. You aren't doing this to shame yourself. You're doing this so your brain stops seeing just the comfort of the escape and finally starts seeing the full painful picture. Once your brain realizes that this delay is actually incredibly expensive, procrastination completely loses its appeal.
Next up, Section 4. Reward the start.
You know, we live in a fast-paced culture that only throws a party when we finally cross the finish line. We celebrate the launched project or the finished degree. But for anyone who struggles with delay, finishing isn't the hardest part. The absolute biggest battle is taking that very first step while feeling intense internal resistance screaming at you to stop. That moment of friction is where the real victory happens.
So, the exact moment you start your task, you have to consciously adopt a new internal dialogue. You must tell yourself, this is me keeping a promise. This is me actively reducing tomorrow's stress. This is me becoming someone I can rely on. You are actively framing the start as a massive win for your own self-worth.
And because the human brain is wired to repeat whatever feels rewarding, you have to follow that initial start with a small, clean reward, maybe a 5-minute walk, a good cup of coffee, or just a moment to stretch and breathe. If starting a task always feels like a punishment, your brain will continually avoid it. But if you start, acknowledge your self-trust, and reward yourself, you shift the feeling of starting from punishment to a feeling of relief and progress. Your brain will absolutely want to return to that positive feeling tomorrow.
Which brings us to our final section, number 5, rewiring for self-trust.
Ultimately, what we are talking about here is a massive rewiring project. By negotiating with your nervous system to make starts incredibly small, by explicitly exposing the hidden taxes of delay, and by rewarding yourself the moment you begin, you are fundamentally retraining your mind. You're proving to your brain, with hard, undeniable evidence, that engaging with the work right now is genuinely, definitively safer and more rewarding than running away from it.
So I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought for today's explainer. Are you ready to finally ditch the heavy, inaccurate guilt of calling yourself lazy? Are you ready to stop trying to brute force your willpower and instead start effectively negotiating with your nervous system to build genuine self-trust? The choice and the actionable tools to make it happen are now entirely in your hands.